English and AEC. 66 Green Glossaries. Sustainability in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. Green Glossary, A to F. Adaptive reuse. The practice of reusing historic or abandoned buildings rather than demolishing them. Adaptive reuse is one of the best sustainable construction strategies because the carbon footprint of a building that already exists is inherently lower than the massive emissions of embodied carbon required to construct a brand new building, even a green one. Alternative energy. An alternative source of power to fossil fuels. Also referred to as renewable, clean, or green energy. Alternative energy sources are preferable to fossil fuels from a sustainability perspective because they either emit fewer or zero greenhouse gases compared to the burning of coal, oil, or natural gas. Examples of alternative energy sources include wind and solar. Anthropocene. The unofficial name of the Earth's present geological era, characterized above all else by humanity's impacts on the planet's biodiversity, ecosystems, and climates. BIM. BIM, or Building Information Modeling, is an advanced form of design software that allows architects, engineers, and construction managers to create highly immersive 3D models of construction projects. BIM is a powerful tool for imagining and designing green buildings. A version called 6D BIM allows users to simulate and analyze a structure based on its energy efficiency and sustainability profile. Bioconcrete. A type of self-healing concrete that is grown with microbes in a process that mirrors how coral and seashells are formed in nature. An example of green concrete, bioconcrete requires much less energy to produce, has a longer lifespan than traditional concrete, and absorbs carbon from the atmosphere, making it an attractive prospect for those concerned about sustainability in the built environment. Biodegradable refers to materials or products that can be broken down in nature in a way that is not harmful to the environment. Biodegradable materials are preferable from a sustainability perspective because their decomposition doesn't leave behind toxins or other environmental pollutants. Examples of biodegradable construction materials include wood, bamboo, hempcrete, cork, and mycelium. Biodiversity. The rich variety of flora, fauna, fungi, and all other forms of life on the macro and micro scale found within a natural ecosystem. Biophilic design. An architectural philosophy focused on putting people in closer contact with nature as a way of increasing the health and well-being of both. Buildings created with biophilic design are heavily interwoven with natural elements such as plant life, living walls, natural lighting, open-air spaces, and water features. Blackwater recycling. Black water, or wastewater from toilets, can be safely recycled as drinking water if the proper treatment and filtration systems are in place. Though rare because of how expensive and energy-intensive they are, blackwater recycling systems can increase resource efficiency, lower utility bills, and offer a viable climate mitigation strategy in regions of the world where water is scarce. An example of a blackwater recycling system can be found at the Vancouver Convention Center West. BREEAM. The world's first green building standard, BREEAM stands for Building Research Establishment Environmental Assessment Method. Like LEED, BREEAM is an evidence-based certification system that evaluates individual building projects based on their level of sustainability. Originating in the United Kingdom in the 1990s, BREEAM has since been adopted in 85 countries and has certified more than 590,000 buildings worldwide. Carbon emissions. Shorthand for the carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases emitted by human activities that involve the burning of fossil fuels. A potent greenhouse gas, CO2, is the primary driver of global warming. As such, the construction industry is a major contributor to climate change, burning roughly 36% of the world's total fossil fuels while also generating 39% of global carbon emissions, according to the International Energy Agency.
Carbon footprint refers to the total amount of carbon and other greenhouse gases emitted by a particular entity, be it an individual, organization, or project. An entity's carbon footprint is typically measured in tons per year. Carbon lock-in. The idea that the world has become locked into a self-perpetuating cycle of dependency on fossil fuels as the result of inertia systematically generated by wrong-headed institutions, technologies, business interests, policy frameworks, economic forces, and incentive structures. Coined in a 2000 journal article by Gregory C. Unruh, carbon lock-in offers a potential explanation for why industrialized human civilization continues to use fossil fuels, despite the overwhelming evidence of their destructive effects and the ready availability of more efficient, less harmful alternatives. Carbon neutral. When a building's carbon emissions are brought into balance over time with an equivalent carbon reduction through the use of sustainable construction practices. For instance, a building that generates its own energy from renewable sources in an amount equivalent to the carbon emitted during the construction process can be said to have achieved carbon neutrality, or net zero emissions. Buildings that are carbon neutral are generally more energy efficient and less harmful to the environment. Climate change. Climate change, also referred to as global warming, refers to periodic shifts in local, regional, or global temperatures and weather patterns. Historically, climate change events have unfolded gradually over thousands of years as the result of small wobbles in the Earth's orbit around the Sun. In its contemporary use, however, climate change describes the rapid acceleration of global warming and catastrophic weather patterns resulting directly from human activities. The planet has experienced a 1.1 degrees Celsius rise in global surface temperature over the last 200 years as a result of the burning of fossil fuels since the dawn of the Industrial Age. Unless we dramatically lower global CO2 emissions within the next few years, climate scientists predict that the planet will warm by 3 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. Cross-laminated timber. A wood-based construction material that consists of layers of lumber boards and panels that are glued together in a crosswise fashion so that the alternating grain patterns in the finished product provide optimal reinforcement and strength. CLT has gained popularity in recent years as a more sustainable alternative to steel and concrete. An example of CLT construction is OAT, a wooden skyscraper with a concrete core located in Amsterdam, Netherlands. Decarbonization. Decarbonization refers to the process of lowering or eliminating carbon emissions with the goal of reaching carbon neutrality, or even zero emissions. In construction, decarbonization takes two primary forms: reducing the embodied carbon emissions that occurred during every phase of the construction from start to finish, and lowering or eliminating the operational carbon emissions that occur from the power usage of a building over its life cycle. Ecology. The interconnected relationships between life forms and the natural environments that surround them. Humanity's ability to survive and thrive on Earth is inextricably tied to the health of the ecologies that we are situated within. Embodied carbon. Embodied carbon refers to carbon emitted by the construction process from start to finish, specifically during the extraction, manufacture, transport, installation, maintenance, demolition, and disposal of the building materials that are used to construct roads, buildings, and infrastructure. Two major sources of embodied carbon in construction are steel and concrete production, each of which emits about 8% of total global carbon emissions. Energy efficiency. In the construction and building sector, energy efficiency refers to the ability of a structure to optimally perform its functions with less energy. For example, building insulation can be used to seal in hot or cold air, reducing the use of electricity for powering heaters and air conditioners. Energy Star. Energy Star is a program administered by the EPA that promotes energy efficiency in consumer products and buildings. buildings that are Energy Star certified are at least 10% more energy efficient compared to non-certified structures. Energy use intensity. A measurement of a building's energy efficiency in relation to its space, typically expressed as energy per square foot. In construction, EUI is a key concept to understanding and performing a life cycle assessment. ESG investment. Environmental, social, and governance investment is a growing approach to investing in business leadership that prioritizes the environmental and social impacts of a company, as well as the fairness and equitability of its internal structure. In construction, ESG investment may take the form of a company using sustainable building materials, embracing rigorous safety practices, and adopting a more equitable internal structure such as the Mondragon Workers' Co-op model.
Green Glossary, G2O.
Geothermal heat pump. A geothermal heat pump is an eco-friendly heating and cooling system that works by drawing ambient energy from under the Earth's surface and using it to heat homes during the winter and cool them during the summer. Geothermal heat pumps are one of the most energy-efficient HVAC systems in existence. Following the same principles that make refrigerators work, geothermal heat pumps are composed of buried pipes arranged in a switchback pattern that are filled with circulating water or antifreeze and connected to an above-ground heat exchanger. Global warming potential. A term used to describe the climate impacts over time of 1 ton of a particular greenhouse gas compared to 1 ton of carbon dioxide emissions. The larger the GWP, the larger the impact a particular gas will have on global climate. In construction, GWP is a key concept used in life cycle assessments. Green building. A green building, also referred to as a sustainable building, is a structure that has been built or renovated to be less harmful to the environment and healthier for human occupants. Green buildings are typically more livable, more energy efficient, and incorporate a range of sustainable building practices, systems, and materials. Green Building Standard. Green building standards are action-oriented frameworks that aim to increase the health, efficiency, and sustainability of buildings. Green building standards, also commonly referred to as green building certification or rating systems, provide a standardized rubric by which to gauge a building's level of sustainability, encouraging a departure from traditional construction practices that are harmful to nature. A mark of prestige, green building standards encourage sustainable construction by highlighting systematic ways to build structures that are more energy efficient, less wasteful, and less destructive to the natural environment. Prominent examples of green building standards are LEED and BREEAM. Green concrete. Green concrete refers to a wide assortment of more eco-friendly alternatives to traditional concrete. Green concrete typically uses some sort of recycled waste material as one of its components or involves a production process that is far less destructive to the environment compared to the manufacture of traditional Portland cement. Examples of green concrete include hempcrete and bioconcrete. Greenhouse gas. The category of harmful gases emitted by the burning of fossil fuels that trap the sun's heat in the atmosphere like a greenhouse, causing global temperatures to rise. Green plumbing. The use of plumbing technologies and systems that optimize water efficiency and reduce environmental harm. Green roof. A green roof is a layer of vegetation that either partially or completely covers the top of a human-made structure. Green roofs are a regenerative design technique that have a number of benefits from a sustainability perspective, serving as vibrant urban ecosystems for local biodiversity and sources of healthy food for human occupants. Green roofs also help purify the air, clean stormwater runoff, and push back against the urban heat island effect by lowering the outdoor ambient air temperature by as much as 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Greenwashing. The act of conveying misleading or even false information about a product, company, or initiative to make it appear more sustainable and environmentally friendly than it actually is. Greenwashing has become a go-to marketing strategy for everyone from businesses and governments to nonprofits and other individuals who use the language of sustainability to cover up environmental harm caused by their actions. In the world of construction, greenwashing is often used to disguise the negative impacts of building projects. A prime example is the sustainable city in Dubai, which markets itself as net zero, even though this isn't true. Gray water. Water that can be safely recycled for non-potable purposes even though it has been lightly used for bathing or washing dishes or clothes. While it may contain traces of grease, dirt, food, and household cleaning products, gray water can be safely reused for watering plants, provided that it goes through the proper filtration process. Though gray water is not safe for drinking, households that use gray water recycling systems for their lawn care needs are more resource efficient, saving as much as 40,000 gallons of water per year. Indoor air quality. The quality of the air within and around our buildings. Poor indoor air quality can have lasting negative impacts on the health of human occupants. Indoor air quality is a major indicator of how livable a structure is and can be improved by using sustainable building materials that are low in volatile organic compounds.
International Energy Agency. The International Energy Agency is an international organization focused on providing data, analysis, and policy recommendations related to the global energy sector. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, is a body of international scientists assembled by the United Nations for the purpose of assessing climate change and developing strategies and policy frameworks for overcoming the challenges that global warming presents to life on Earth. The IPCC's assessment reports are the go-to source of information for the latest in climate science, offering action-oriented guidance on how world governments, regions, and cities should respond to and prepare for global warming. LEED. Short for Leadership Energy and Environmental Design, LEED is one of the world's most widely used green building standards. Since its creation by the U.S. Green Building Council in 1998, LEED has become one of the most popular international green building standards, with more than 100,000 certified projects worldwide. Life Cycle Assessment. A life cycle assessment is a systematic computer-driven method for quantifying the sustainability of a construction project over the course of its entire lifespan. An LCA provides a complete map of the environmental and climatological impacts of your project, from the embodied carbon emitted by material extraction, manufacturing, and installation to the operational carbon emitted by the structure's day-to-day power consumption. Living Building Challenge. Regarded as one of the most rigorous green building standards in existence, the Living Building Challenge pushes builders to adopt regenerative design as a way of increasing a building's sustainability. Under the LBC, the sustainability of a project is determined after assessing a year of the building's performance and by measuring it against 7 key performance metrics, or PETALs. Metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. The official standard unit of measurement for carbon dioxide emissions and other greenhouse gases. Mycelium. Mycelium is a white fibrous material that grows in the soil, forming dense fungal networks underground, of which mushrooms are the fruiting bodies. An essential component of a thriving ecosystem, mycelium and mushrooms can also be used in construction as a sustainable building material. Examples of mycelium's uses in construction include as insulation, bricks, and decorative wall panels. Mycoremediation. The process of using fungi to break down and biodegrade waste materials and pollutants in the environment. Natural ventilation. The process of pulling fresh air into a building from the outside by virtue of passive design elements. An example of natural ventilation is a wind catcher. New urbanism. New urbanism is a school of thought in the urban design world that argues against the supremacy of the car and in favor of human-scale cities with compact mixed-use neighborhoods, inclusionary zoning, interconnected trail networks, and robust public transit systems at their hearts. Operational carbon. Operational carbon refers to the carbon emissions that result from the energy consumed by buildings once they've been constructed. In other words, these emissions are a result of the fossil fuels burned to heat, cool, and electrify our buildings during their lifespans.
Green Glossary, P to Z.
Paris Agreement. A landmark international treaty adopted in 2015 by 196 nations during the UN Climate Change Conference in Paris. The primary goal of the Paris Agreement is to keep global warming from going beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. The treaty calls for worldwide carbon emissions to be reduced by 45% by 2030 and for the globe to reach net zero emissions by 2050. Passive design. A sustainable method of designing and constructing low-energy buildings that derive their power, heating, cooling, and ventilation needs either partially or completely from naturally occurring passive elements within the environment. A building created with passive design can achieve a comfortable and livable interior simply by taking advantage of the surrounding climate and by relying on the innate properties of certain materials, such as the thermal mass of concrete. Passive elements that can be manipulated to positively influence a building's energy efficiency include its windows, glazing, blinds, insulation, orientation, tree cover, air tightness, and evaporative qualities. Passive house. Also referred to as Passivhaus, Passivhaus is a German green building standard that emphasizes energy efficiency through passive design. Regenerative design. A rigorous approach to designing sustainable buildings and communities in such a way that they have a net positive impact on the natural environments that surround them. Regeneratively, buildings mimic natural restorative processes and integrate living systems into their design. An example of a regenerative design element is a green roof. Solar photovoltaic installer. Solar photovoltaic installers are skilled professionals in the renewable energy and construction sector who assemble and install systems that convert sunlight into electrical energy. Stormwater runoff. Rain that is not absorbed into the ground but instead flows over hard surfaces in the built environment such as rooftops, concrete parking lots, and paved streets and sidewalks. Stormwater runoff can result in flooding and the pollution of drinking water, as stormwater runoff carries toxins in the form of fertilizers, oil, pesticides, and other harmful chemicals found in the built environment. Stormwater runoff can be reduced with sustainable building techniques such as green roofs. Suburban sprawl. Suburban sprawl refers to the constant outward expansion of the suburbs, seemingly without plan or design, into the natural and agricultural settings that surround them. As low-density housing developments and strip malls spread unchecked into the countryside, so too proliferate the networks of roads, highways, and parking lots that connect them. Suburban sprawl is antithetical to the aspiration of a more sustainable form of construction and urban design because it destroys natural ecosystems and upholds the supremacy of the automobile, resulting in unwalkable communities that are detrimental to both human and environmental health. Superblock. Superblocks are an urban design and transformation technique aimed at calming or eliminating automotive traffic within clusters of blocks that have been organized into a single, larger block. Championed in Barcelona, Spain, superblocks are one way to retrofit existing cities to be healthier and more walkable. Sustainable city. Also referred to as a green city or an eco-city, a sustainable city is an urban environment whose design, construction, and operation prioritizes the preservation of the natural world alongside the economic, social, and physical health and wellness of the city's inhabitants. Sustainable construction. An approach to construction that protects and bolsters the health of humans and the environment by adopting renewable energy, sustainable building materials, and other transformative climate-conscious building practices. Sustainable construction becomes more important with each passing day in an era characterized by ever-growing impacts from human-caused climate change. As of this writing, construction eats up 36% of the world's fossil fuels while also generating 39% of global CO2 emissions. Sustainable building materials. A category of eco-friendly building materials that require less or zero fossil fuels to produce compared to traditional carbon-intensive building materials like steel or concrete. Some examples of sustainable building materials include wood, cork, mycelium, hemp, and green concrete.
Tactical urbanism. Tactical urbanism, also referred to as guerrilla urbanism, DIY urbanism, and urban acupuncture, is a fast, affordable, action-oriented approach to making meaningful improvements to the physical fabric and feel of neighborhoods, cities, and other communal areas. In practice, tactical urbanism involves people going out into their communities and making the changes to the built environment they want to see, sometimes without asking for permission. According to Mike Lydon and Anthony Garcia, the co-authors of Tactical Urbanism, short-term action for long-term change, tactical urbanism is used by a range of actors, including governments, business and nonprofits, citizen groups, and individuals. An example of tactical urbanism include using tires, spray paint, or potted plants to reclaim a portion of a street to create a makeshift bike lane, garden, or plaza.
Thermal mass. The capacity of materials in a building to absorb, store, and release heat. An essential passive design strategy, a well-positioned thermal mass acts as a heat sink during the day and a heat source at night, passively absorbing heat from the sun's rays and releasing it as warmth in the evening hours. Examples of high thermal mass building materials include earth, wood, steel, brick, and concrete. Transit-oriented development. Transit-oriented development is a new urbanist approach to sustainable city and regional design aimed at creating compact, walkable, mixed-use communities centered around high-quality mass public transit systems such as trains and buses. Urban heat island effect. An urban heat island is an area of higher temperature in urban areas with high concentrations of heat-absorbing building materials like steel, concrete, and asphalt. These common building materials absorb and re-emit an enormous amount of heat, driving temperatures in cities anywhere between 1 to 7 degrees higher than surrounding areas. Ambient heat generated by vehicles and air conditioning units have further exacerbated the problem. U.S. Green Building Council. The U.S. Green Building Council is the privately run 501c3 that administers the LEED Green Building Standard.
Walkable cities. Cities that are designed more for humans than for cars. Championed by new urbanist thinkers like architect and urban designer Jeff Speck, walkable cities are healthier and more sustainable than traditional cities. Walkable cities are characterized by compact mixed-use neighborhoods, inclusionary zoning, interconnected trail networks, and robust public transit systems.
Wind catcher. Wind catchers are a zero-emissions, low-tech, and sustainable alternative to air conditioning. Also referred to as wind towers, wind scoops, or badger in Persian, wind catchers are an ancient architectural technology that cools spaces without the use of electricity. A typical wind catcher is a tall, hollow, chimney-like structure that crowns the tops of buildings. Cooler fresh air from high up in the sky passes through vertical openings in the tower's sides and is driven downward into the interior of the dwelling below. Wind catchers are most common in Middle Eastern nations. But the ancient Arabian cooling technique has found its way to the U.S. in the form of the wind catcher atop the visitor center at Zion National Park, which can keep the building's interior temperature as much as 29 degrees cooler compared to outside. Wind turbine technicians. One of the fastest growing careers in the U.S. as of this writing, a wind turbine technician, or wind tech, is a skilled professional in the renewable energy and construction sector who is trained to install, inspect, service, and repair wind turbines, massive windmill devices that convert the wind's kinetic energy into electrical energy.
World Green Building Council. The World Green Building Council is an international non-profit organization focused on increasing sustainability and decarbonization in the built environment.
Zero emissions. When no greenhouse gases are emitted at all as the result of a given human activity. A zero or real zero scenario is a more ambitious goal than carbon neutrality or net zero emissions because it calls for the complete elimination of carbon emissions as opposed to the reduction and balancing of them. In construction, achieving zero emissions would require the total elimination of all embodied carbon and operational carbon emitted as the result of a building's construction and operation.